Okay, let's begin our today's class. Okay, shall we begin? I don't know. I don't know how they schedule for you. Oh yeah, true. I think today you have the lecture with her, right? So I guess later she will let you know about this, I guess. Yeah, so that's why a bit last minute, I guess. Okay, let's begin. Today we talk about cost of capital. Okay, now today what we are going to do for today's class will be to learn about WACC. Now, what is the WACC? So WACC means the full name is called Weighted Average Cost of Capital. That means the cost that the firms use, okay, to actually the cost of capital that the firms use to run the business. Okay, so see, first of all, in the previous class, we have learned that there are two main ways for a business to raise the finance. So there are two ways for capital funding, in which the first one is called debt financing, and the second one is called equity financing. So that means one is through the issue of bonds, which we call as debts. Another one is through the issue of equity, or we call as through the issue of shares, we call as equity financing. Yeah, I think that doesn't work, right? I cannot refer to that already. I think that works. You might want to switch on that one. Okay, so you see, these are the two main ways for a business to raise the finance. Okay, so either they get the money from the issue of bonds, or they get the money from the issue of shares. Okay, so these are the methods for the firms to raise the finance. So in the words, okay, when the people buy the bonds and the people buy the shares of this business as a way of giving this business finance, that means they will expect some sort of returns, right? So therefore, the expectation of the returns of the lenders and the shareholders, okay, are basically a cost to the business. Correct now? Because the business will have to make sure that they achieve this amount of money to make it as a return to the lenders and the shareholders. So therefore, when I say WACC, it's about cost of capital. Okay, that means the cost of the capital that the business need to achieve in order to fulfill the returns for the shareholders and the lenders. So WACC is the minimum rate of returns, okay, that the company must maintain on the total asset. Okay, why? Because these are the expected returns to the shareholders and lenders. Okay, so in other words, okay, when I say cost of capital, to a business, that means we are referring to the two different ways for business to raise finance, in which it is the expected returns of lenders who purchase the bonds of the company, and shareholders, okay, who purchase the equity, the shares of the company. Okay, because once they give the business money to invest, okay, they will expect the returns. So therefore, what these two people expect are basically the cost of capital that the business must achieve. They must maintain. Okay, so lenders are actually the people who buy the bonds, and the shareholders are the people who buy the shares. Okay, so therefore, the returns that lenders and shareholders expect to receive, okay, in return for providing capital or money to the company. And remember, when we talk about debt financing here, okay, because bonds is is one type of debts. So therefore, interest rate, because when you talk about debts, there will be interest rate, and interest rate is tax deductible. So therefore, later on in our calculations, we will do some adjustment for tax as well. Okay, but equity is not. So therefore, let's have a look into WACC formula. So this is the formula that we're going to use for today's class. So the first one is weightage of equity. So first of all, when we talk about equity, we have two types of stock. So if you still remember, when we talk about equity, so we have two types of shares. The first one is called preferred stock. Remember in the tutorial 7, we learned about this. Okay, the first one is preferred stock, and the second one is common stock. So there are three components over here that we are going to look into. The first one is debt, second is preferred stock, and the third one is common stock. So three things in my formula later on. Okay, so let's have a look into the formula itself. So the first one, okay, I look into the weightage of equity. That means how much of equity that's being used by the company. Okay, weightage of equity. So what we refer to as a weightage. Weightage means how much of the weight, okay, that the company use this method. Okay, so weightage of equity times the cost of equity. So this one, when I put E, that means I'm referring to the common stock. Okay, I'm referring to the common stock. Okay, so weightage of equity times the cost of equity. So when I say weightage of equity, that means I want to see how much of the value of equity that's being issued as compared to the total values of the capital funding. So therefore, to calculate WE over here, okay, I will use the market value of equity that has been issued divided by the total value of the capital funding, okay, times the cost of equity. Cost of equity means the expectation of the returns from the equity shareholders. So therefore, there's the returns for the shareholders. The cost to me as a businessman is the returns to the shareholders. Okay, so therefore, the cost of equity, okay, we'll link it to returns of equity here. Okay, so therefore, when I say cost of equity means I'm referring to the returns of the equity to the shareholders, to the people who purchase the common stock. Okay, now next one, when I say weightage of preferred stock, that means how much of preferred stock that have been issued by this company, by this business. So therefore, to calculate the weightage of the stock, okay, I use the value of the preferred stock that have been issued divided by the total value of the capital funding that have been issued. Okay, so therefore, here I use value of preferred stock divided by total value of the capital fundings. Okay, times the cost of preferred stock. Okay, cost of preferred stock. Cost of preferred stock is the returns of the preferred stock. Okay. And the last component is the debts. Okay, so you see we have three components in total, right? So the last one is the debt. So I want to see the weightage of debts. So that means I use the value of the debts that have been issued divided by the total value of the capital funding. Okay, so therefore that's the first thing, times the cost of debts. So cost of debt is the returns of debts to the people who purchase the bonds. So therefore cost of debts will be represented by the returns of debts. Okay, and I need to adjust for tax because debt is tax deductible. So therefore this part over here is 1 minus TC. Okay, so 1 minus TC. Okay, I put it here. Okay, so we have three components over here, and this is how the WACC is calculated. So what you need to do for today's class is to calculate all of these components to get the actual WACC. So remember, WACC is the cost of capital that the business must achieve. because these are the expected returns of the shareholders and the lenders, because they have given the company, the business, the money. So therefore, these are the returns that the business must generate to pay to them. So therefore, it's a cost to the business, but it's a return to the shareholders and lenders. Okay, faham? Okay, so now we are going to calculate all these components for today's class. Okay, so these are the steps I've summarized for you. So I can call it as three main steps. Three main steps. The first one is I want to calculate the corresponding cost. The cost here I'm referring to is the returns. Okay, the returns, the R that we're talking about. Okay, so like for example, just now we talk about cost of capital for equity. Okay, KE means cost of equity. That means the required return by the equity investors, by the people who purchase the common stock. Okay, so when we talk about common stock to calculate the returns, remember we have two different formulas that we learned in the previous class. So first one we have CAPM or SML, the security market line. Okay, one way is to use this formula to calculate the required return of equity. Okay, I can use the risk-free rate plus beta times the risk premium. Okay, another method is using the dividend growth model. Remember how we use the dividend growth model previously? Remember the formula is something like this. P0 equals to D1 as a proportion of R minus G. Okay, so now I move around with the terms. Okay, and I form this equation, dividend growth model, because I want to calculate the returns. So I need to move around to make R as the function here. Okay, so we have two formulas for us to calculate the required return for the equity for the people who purchase the common stock. So how do you decide which one to use? So it depends on what formula they give you. They depends on what components or what information they provide to you. If they provide you beta or risk premium, then you will use CAPM. If they give you growth, the growth rate, you will use the dividend growth rate. So it depends on what kind of information that you have been given to. Okay, so what if they give you both? Then you calculate both and find the average. Okay, if they give you both, you have to calculate using the CAPM as well as the dividend growth model and then divided by 2. Okay, you find the average. Now, are these two components or are these two formulas realistic or not? It's actually not realistic in real life because, as I say, when we talk about dividend growth model, the growth rate over here, we assume that it's constant. How can you be so sure that the growth rate is constant for all the years for a business, right? So therefore, G is usually not constant in reality. So in case if they ask you to comment about these two equations, you can say, first of all, in reality, the growth rate is not constant at all. No business can ensure that the growth rate is constant all the time. And also same goes for CAPM as well. It's not easy for you to measure the beta. Beta is what? It's a risk. What kind of risk? Systematic or unsystematic? Systematic. So again, it's very hard for you to measure all this as well. There are a lot of assumptions being made over here. So therefore, these are the things that you can comment about with these two models. But of course, if you make assumptions, it makes things simple. So therefore, we assume it for simplicity purposes. Okay, the next one is cost of capital for preferred stock. Okay, so that means that this is the required returns for the people who purchase the preferred stock. Okay, what is preferred stock? Preferred stock is a stock that gives the constant dividends every period. Okay, so that means they give the dividends, they give the cash flow perpetually. Okay, so we call it as required return for the preferred stocks. Remember, how do we calculate that? Okay, so to calculate the price of the preferred stock, we use P divided by dividends, the cash flow they receive, divided by the required returns, right? So if I want to calculate the required return for this preferred stock, I just move around, then it becomes this formula. Okay, this is the formula that we use. Okay, and then the next one is the cost of debts. Okay, cost of debts means the required return on the company's debts. Okay, so therefore this one we will calculate the YTM. What is YTM? YTM is the year to maturity. YTM means the year to maturity, the return of the bonds. Okay. So this one you need to refer back to your chapter 6 contents again. Okay. So later on you calculate the year to maturity. It's something like the returns. Okay. So but remember year to maturity referring to the annual one. So later on that means we have to convert the answers into annual. Okay. So later we are going to do some calculations in case we have forgotten how to calculate YTM. Okay, then after that, step 2 is to identify the corresponding weightage. So the second part is to calculate the weightage. So first of all, I have to calculate the total value of the capital fundings, in which I use the value of the equity plus value of the preferred stock plus the value of debts. So this is the value of the total fundings. Okay, but I want to find out the weightage for each of the components, the weightage for equity, the weightage of capital, weightage of the preferred stock, and the weightage of the debts. So how? So therefore, very simple, like what I told you just now. To calculate the weightage of equity, I use the total value of the equity that have been issued divided by the total value of capital fundings. Okay, to calculate the weightage of preferred stock, I use the total value of the preferred stock divided by the value of the total value of the fundings. And the lastly is the total value of the debts divided by the value of the total value of the capital funding. And then once you have all these components, you can run the model already. So to run this model, I'm going to do one exam type questions. So go to the Google Drive, and I have uploaded one document in the previous class, yesterday. Okay, I have uploaded one document yesterday. It's a cheat sheet for today's class. So these are things you need to know for today's class. Okay, so I have covered about the formula. So now we are going to apply the formulas to run the model. When I say run the model, is to calculate the WACC. Okay, so when I run the model, that means I have to calculate the WACC itself. So download the documents that I uploaded yesterday. So we are done with this contents. Okay, everyone download this document. Very important. Cheat sheet. Okay. This is you want to take a photo? Oh, I erased already. Oh. Got recording, no worries. Yeah. Okay, let's do this question together. Okay, so first of all, let's read the questions. A corporation, by the way, this is your exam type questions. It's also in the tutorial answers as well, but I want to discuss this with you during our discussion, during our classes. Now, a corporation has 10,000 bonds outstanding. That means they have issued this number of bonds. Wait, listen, Shh. With a 10% coupon rate. So that's the coupon payment. Coupon rate means your coupon payment. In case for some of you who have forgotten after you watch the lecture rewind. Coupon payment. That means it's your PMT. But it's semi-annual, okay? So therefore later I need to make some adjustment for this coupon rate. Because why? Because the 10% is for yearly one, but it's semi-annual. That means this bond will pay you 2 times a year. They will pay you half a year. Okay, so therefore later on you need to convert the interest rate to semi-annual. Okay, and has a face value of 1,000. You see, face value of 1,000. Bonds away has the face value of 1,000. So therefore, when by the time it matures, when you want to get back your money, you get back this 1,000 as well. This is the principal value that you paid, and at the end you get it back as well. So face value is 1,000, and you will get it back in the future as well. So that is your future value as well. Okay, 20 years to maturity, but this is years. I want semi-annual, so I need to convert into semi-annual. So 20 years convert to semi-annuals, how many? 20 times 2 for 40, okay? And it's selling for this amount. So this is the amount that you have to pay when you want to buy this bond. So this is present value, and this is N, but the thing is we have to convert into semi-annual, so 20 times 2 is 40. 40 periods. Okay, so we have all these components ready. Definitely we can calculate the YTM. Okay, now we will do that later on. So it's very obvious for the first one. Okay, for the first scenario over here, we are referring to the debts. Okay, next part. The company's 150,000 shares of preferred stock. So that means these are the preferred stock that have been issued, the number of preferred stocks. Pay a 2.5 annual dividend and sell for 36 per share. So can you identify what are these components? Very simple already, right? So this is the dividends, the cash flow, and this is the price. So this part is for preferred stock. Easy busy. Okay. And the next one, the company has 1 million shares of common stock outstanding. That means these are the common stock that have been issued, the number, not the value. Okay. The next dividend payment will be 2.45 per share. So what is this? This is what we call as the D1, the future stock. Okay. The dividends are anticipated to maintain a 5.5% growth rate. So what is this? This is the growth rate. The stock currently sells for 49.50 per share. So what is this? Is the price. Okay, so this is for us to calculate the equity, the common stock. Assuming the tax rate is 40%, and why is the WACC? Trust me, this is why students usually can score, because if you can understand all these components already, you know how to put into the formula itself, and without doing any mistake, you can get full marks, 20 marks. Since it's 20 marks, will it come out in the exam? Yes, it will. So it's very easy to score. So the first thing, you identify all the components first, then you can start to answer. So make sure you don't do any mistakes, because usually I realize that students make mistakes in the calculations. Like for example, maybe they forgot to convert into decimals. Some decimal, some percentage, so therefore the students confused at the end, they got the wrong answers. So therefore, to avoid the confusion, make sure when you calculate later on, you change everything to decimals. All the percentage change to decimals. And then once you get the final answer, only then change to the percentage. Okay, it's really, really easy to score. Okay, so first one, what is the market value of the bonds? So we talk about the bonds, we're referring to the debt financing, which is the first component. Now I'm talking about the market value. So market value, how do we calculate market value? Okay, so market value, you need to use the price times the number of the outstanding bonds. Okay, so market value equals to the price of bonds. Okay, price of bonds times the number of bonds that have been issued. Okay, so price of bond is berapa? So you have seen that the price of bond is 1197.93 times how many is outstanding, how many has been issued, 10,000 bonds. So what do you get? So you get quite a large number, 11,979,300. Okay, so that's the answers for the first one. So that's how you calculate market value. Market value means you use the price times the amount. Price times the amount. Okay, so how do you calculate the required return by bondholders? So I want to calculate the R, the cost of capital to the firms. Okay, so this is what I want to calculate, RP. Okay, but so this one is before tax first. We will adjust it for tax later on. Okay, you want to adjust here also can, up to you, but as long as I see the answers correct, I will give you the marks. So this one, I want to calculate the RD. RD is what we call as the yield to maturity for the bonds. So therefore, I will just write, first of all, for bonds, you start with FV first. Future value is always 1,000. So 1 mark already when you write like this, 1 mark. For bonds, is always FV equal to 1,000. Okay, PV, how much you need to pay when you want to buy these bonds? Negative how much? 1197.93. 1197.93. Okay, and then what about coupon payment, PMT? Okay, I need to divide first. Okay, because this is 10%, right? Okay, so I need to divide this 10% by 2 times 1,000, because the face value of the bond is always 1,000. So I want to see how much of coupon payment that I receive every period. So therefore, 10% divided by 2 is 5%. 5% times 1,000 is how much? 50. 50, yeah? Let me know if the answer is not correct. Okay, 50. Okay, or you can do another way around. You can use 10% times 1,000 first and then divided by 2 also can. You must divide it by 2. Why? Because it's semi-annual. You need to divide by 2. Okay, and then what about number of periods? So this is 20 years. but semi-annual. So 20 times 2 equals to 40 period. Okay, so I have all the components ready, and what's next is I can compute the IY. So compute IY, you get the answers. So, but this is for semi-annual per half year. I want the full years one. So you try to do this first. So you have all these figures, FV 1000, PV this amount, this is PMT, and this is number of periods. So what is the uh IY? Okay, what is the IY? 4%. Should be 4%, but 4% is per half year. Okay, 4% per half year because it's semi-annual. But when I calculate YTM, I want full year. So YTM, I must times it with 2. 4% times 2 equals to 8% per annum. Because year to maturity is per annum. Okay, so that's answers. So this is the what we call as the required return for the debts before tax. If you want to convert it after tax here also can. But or you want to convert it later also can, up to you. I don't want to convert first. Later I need to convert. But in exam, if you scare you forget, you can convert later on. You can convert here. That means you want to convert to required rate of return for debts after tax also can. If you want to convert first also can. This one I want to convert later on. But in exam, you scare if you forget, you can convert this one first. Very important, huh? Do not forget to convert to after tax, huh? You need to adjust it for tax. Okay? Anyone with financial calculator or not? Can get the 4% per half year? Is it correct? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. You joined today's class of. Oh, okay, okay. Oh, okay, okay. No worries, no worries. Can. Oh, you know them, is it? So that's why they bring you here.
No, I know Gwen.
Oh, good Glenn. Oh, Gwen. Okay, okay. She. Oh, okay. Fine. No worries, no worries. Okay, can. Okay, next one. Hey, everyone can get the answers, So that's how you calculate the required return for bonds. Okay, next one, we calculate what is the market value of the preferred shares. Okay, market value, same thing, you use the price times the number of preferred shares that have been issued. Okay, so therefore, market value for the preferred one, okay, you use the price times the number of the preferred share that we issue. So what's the price? Price is 36, and then there are 150,000 shares. Okay, so we use 36 times the 150,000 shares that have been issued. So you times it, you should be able to get 5,400,000. Okay, so that's the value of the preferred share. So I can label it as well in case later on you find confusing. So this one value of debts, and this is value of preferred stock. Okay, and then what is the required return by preferred shareholders? Then very simple, you just use the formula to calculate the required return for the preferred stocks. You use the dividends divided by the price. So dividend is how much? Dividend is 2.5. 2.5 divided by 36. Okay, you get the answers. Remember to convert into percentage. So I convert into percentage, it will be 9.4, 6.944. Let me use calculator first. Hold on. 2.5 divided by 36. Yeah. So because at first you will get this decimal 0.069444. Okay, but you need to convert to percentage. So convert to percentage, which is 6.9444%. Okay, that's answers for the required return for preferred stock. Remember, you get the decimal first, only convert everything to percentage. So this is RTBT and this is RP. Okay, next one, what is the market value of common stock? So do the same as well. Market value of common stock. Okay, price times the outstanding shares. So price is how much? 49.5 times 1 million. 9.5, okay, times 1 million. Okay, so, wow, it's all big figures, huh? Ooh, so it should be 49. Okay, so therefore this is the value for the common stock. Value of equity. Okay, what is the required return by the common stockholders? Okay, we use the formula. Okay, so for this one, we use the formula. So cost required return by common stock means the cost of the equity. Okay, so how do we calculate required return of equity? Remember the formula that I told you just now, D1 divided by P0 plus G. But that's one problem. We do not have D1. D1 tak ada. Why? Because they give you D0. Yeah, okay, we got. Okay, because that one is D1. In case in exam if they do not have D1, then you need to calculate from the D0 like what we learned in the previous class. I'll show you later on when we do the questions. Okay, so this one is easy. They give you all the figures ready. Okay, so we have all the figures that are easier to calculate. Okay, 2.45 divided by 49.50 plus the constant growth rate is how much? 5.5%. 5.5% is 0.055. Okay, make sure you convert into decimal first, easier. Okay, so at the end you get 0.1045. Okay, and convert into percentage is 10.45%. Okay, that's what we call as the required return of the equity, RE. Okay, we have all the components ready. So will you be able to calculate WACC? Okay, you need to put everything into formula. Okay, so first we calculate the total value of the total market value of all security first. Total market value of all securities. We call it to the big V. Okay, the big V. So we add up all the market value. The market value for debts, market value of preferred stock, and the market value of the common stock. So add up all of all the figures very big, man. Okay. Okay, so this is a big V, and we get okay. So this is the big V. Okay, then I want to calculate the weightage. Okay, I want to calculate the weightage of the debts. Okay, so I use the market value of debts divided by total market value. So it is 11979 divided by 66,879. 300. Very big on the numbers, so you have to key to calculate the. Okay, so there's the weightage for that. Okay, and then weightage of preferred stock. Okay, and then you calculate it. This one you get 0.0807. So remember all these are in decimals, huh? Okay, last one, weightage of equity, common stock. This one is 0.7401. Okay, you get all the weightage already, then things will be easy peasy. Okay, so you can calculate your WACC. So I can write the formula first. Weightage of debts times the required return for debts, and then I have to adjust for tax 1 minus T, K plus weightage of preferred stock times the required return of preferred stock times the weightage of equity times the return of equity. Then things will be very easy already because we have already calculated all this value. So weightage of debt is 0.1791 times the required return of debt. How much required return for debt is 8. Then 1 minus 40% of tax, 0.4. Okay, plus weightage of preferred stock is 0.0807 times the required return of preferred stock is. So remember, put all in decimals, so the easier. You don't later a bit decimals, a bit percentage, then you will get the answers wrong. Okay, so uh hold on, give me a while. 8%, and this is 0. Okay, then I put into decimal first. Hold on. So I put all in decimals better. So give me a while. Okay. Make your calculator not. I want to calculate and see if it's normal calculator 就好了。哎，我用calculator。 So the answers will be 0.0915. Okay, but I want to convert into percentage, so which is 9.15%. So that's the final answer. So this is your cost of capital. That means the required rate of return that you must achieve for the lenders and the shareholders. If you make sure you are able to calculate it using calculator, the values are quite big, and then sometimes you might confuse the decimals or percentage. So for me, for safety reasons, I change everything to decimals. All these are decimals. Make sure at the end you convert the percentage. And remember to adjust for tax. Sometimes students forgot to adjust for tax. Because if you're scared you forgot adjust for tax, you can do that earlier. Okay, so therefore remember the first thing here, this part here is the RDAT. That means required return after the tax. This one. Okay, and shall we continue? So this is the most important thing that you must focus on in this class. Most important as compared to tutorial questions. Okay, so now all good, huh? Okay, now just want to briefly go through this question too. It's the same thing, but I just want to show you that the some of the calculations may be different for the common stock. You see, for this one, okay, the first info here is for you to calculate what? To calculate the required return for the debts. The second components over here is to calculate the required return of the preferred stocks. The last component over here is for you to calculate the required returns for the equity, which is the common stock. But you are being given the beta and the risk-free rate and market return. So what formula you should use? You are not going to use dividend growth model anymore. You are using CAPM, the SML. Okay, so therefore the difference for this question is that when you calculate the common stock, you use the CAPM formula to get the answers. The rest all the same. The rest you do the same. Okay, even for the bonds, it's the same as well. This one is, yeah, this one, it doesn't mention semi-annual, so it's annual. Yeah, so this one is annual one, so easier a bit. Annual coupon rate, 8 years to maturity, face value, and market price. So this one we assume is annual. Yeah, annual one, no need to go and divide by 2 or times 2. Okay, so the answers are here. So you do the same as well when you revise. Okay, so at the end, when you want to calculate WACC, you must make sure you calculate all the total market value of all securities, the weightage of debts, the weightage of preferred stock, and the weightage of common stock. Okay, and then put everything in WACC. Do not forget to adjust for the tax for the debts as well. Okay, so there's the answers for this question. So when you revise, when you study for exam, this paper is important. Okay, so once you are done, then we can have a look into tutorial questions. Okay, let's continue. Okay, first question. Now, this question I want to pay some attention to it because there will be a theory question. There will be one theory question about this as well. Okay, see, on the most basic level, let's say the firm WACC is 12%. What does this mean? That means this is the minimum rate of return that the firm must earn for the lenders and the shareholders. That means this is the required return for the lenders and shareholders. Okay, so if let's say today you invest in a project that earns more than 12%, that means that its value is created. Okay, so example, see, just now in the question that we do, in the question that we did, we calculate WACC is how much? 9.15%. Just now we get this amount, right? Now in your exam questions, there'll be a question asking you to do a decision. So let's say, okay, we refer back to the question that we did just now. Okay, the WACC is 9.15%. Now the question asks you if today you are being presented a project that can give you a return of 6%. Will you proceed or will you not? So I repeat, if today your WACC is 9.15%, and at the same time you are being presented a project that can give you a return of 6%, will you proceed or not? Yes, no? Hello? Wait, will you proceed or not? 一定是没有在听的。喂 important 5 marks though, the decision making. So will you proceed or not? If let's say WACC is not 9.15%, but the project, there's a project that can give you an expected return of 6%. Will you proceed with this project? Why proceed? You can't even cover the cost. You need to earn 9.15. Okay, you see, you need to earn 9.15% to your shareholders and lenders, but this project can only earn you 6%. There's no point to proceed. So you should reject. But the most you still can get 6%, right? Average. You see, if you pour, that means you take unsystematic risk. We can only take systematic risk, ma. Okay, lor. So cannot proceed. So this is how the question will ask you in terms of decision making. Because you can't even cover your cost. Your WACC, you think about like a cost. See, you say cost of capital already, think about like cost of your cost is 9.15%, but your expected return is only 6%. Of course, you cannot cover one. So you should not proceed. Okay, that's why I say when you earn more than the WACC, then you have the value. I think you see here, I just say only if it earns more than this value is created. So if the project earns more than the amount that only you can create, like for example, this one, if the WACC is 12%, okay, then the expected returns of the project is 15%. Then good lah. Because the expected returns to the shareholders and the lenders are only 12%, and you are able to generate a return of 15%. You still have excess here, you have a surplus here. Good, then you should proceed. This is good. Okay, decision making is important. So in exam, you must explain why you proceed or why you choose not to proceed. Okay, because if it's lower than WACC, there's no value created. You can't even satisfy the minimum required return. Okay, next question. Why do we use an after-tax figure for cost of debt, but not for cost of equity? Because debt is tax deductible. Because when we talk about debt, there's interest. Interest is tax deductible. Okay, but there is no tax deductible for equity. Okay, this is one sample here, but that's basically the answers about tax deductible only. Okay, next question. Calculate the cost of equity. Stock in Mata Limited has a beta of 0.9. Beta. And the market risk premium is 7%. What is the formula for market risk premium? So this one, do you still need to calculate? You don't need to calculate already. Why? Because they give you the amount of the risk premium. What is risk premium? How is it calculated? Our M minus our F. Risk premium. Okay, and T-bills. So when I say T-bills, What am I referring to? What rate here? Risk-free rate. Okay. Mata's most, okay, see the first three information here, we can calculate CAPM already. But at the same time, they give you dividend growth model information as well. You see, Mata's most recent dividend was 1.9 per share. Most recent dividend, D0. Okay. And dividends are expected to grow at a 5% annual rate indefinitely. Okay. So therefore, this is the growth rate G. Okay, easy. If the stock sell for $40 per share, apa ni? P0. What is your best estimate of cost of equity? Oh, now you have two information. You have one following the CAPM and one follow the dividend growth model. So how? Both also need to calculate and then find the average. Okay, so therefore the first one, I calculate the using the CAPM formula. So this one is using CAPM. Okay, this is the part where we use CAPM. Okay, so you use the risk-free rate, which is 0.04 plus the beta 0.9 times 0.07. Okay, because there's a risk premium. Ini risk premium. Okay, at the end you get the answers 10.3%. Okay, then at the same time you want to use your dividend growth model, DGM. Okay, so there's one problem. There's no D1. You only have D0. Then you calculate D1. No, how do you calculate D1 again? D1 equals to D0, 1 plus G. Don't forget, it's important. You see, all the chapters are interrelated, right? If you forget one chapter, you don't need to do the exam already. Okay, so therefore, required return equals to this one. Okay, we follow this formula because we don't have D1. Okay, so this is the DGM that we refer to. So put the numbers in. So you can see actually the difference are not much. Just now that one is 10.3%, this one is 9.99%. About that lah. Okay, so now what happened is we have two figures. We want to calculate the average. So we add up these two divided by 2. Okay, then done. Easy peasy. Quite fun, this subject. Okay. Okay, let's continue. Next one, cost of debt. This is bonds, calculation of bonds. Okay, ICU Window Incorporated is trying to determine its cost of debt. The firm has a debt issue outstanding with 7 years to maturity that is quoted at 108% of face value. Wow, tricky, yeah? How? What is this 108% of face value? That means this one is to calculate the present value. That means when you want to buy this bond, you have to pay 108% of the face value. You must know what it means though. So this one is for us to calculate the present value. Okay, so that means I use 1000 times 108%. You should get 1080. Right, let me see. Yep, so 1080. Okay, then after that, remember for PV, you must put a negative later on. Okay, the issue makes semi-annual payments. Semi-annual. So you need to do some calculation later on. And has an embedded cost of 7.4% annually. What is 7.4% here? A coupon payment. But this coupon payment, this PMT is annual one. You have to convert into semi-annual later on. Same thing for 7 years. The end here, you need to convert to semi-annual as well. Okay. So what is ICU pre-tax cost of debt? So I have to calculate the pre-tax and after tax if the tax rate is 39%. Can do or not this one? We do step by step. Okay. For bonds questions, even if you want to use formula, it's super hard. So do not use the formula methods for the bonds. You must use the calculator. How? Okay, I do it here. So first of all, write what we have done just now. Same thing for bonds is like what we did just now. Do not use the formula methods. Okay, so therefore use the calculator methods. So first of all, you put your second clear TVM. Okay, for bonds, always write FV equals to 1,000, 1 mark. Okay, then PV negative 1080. N is how much? 7 years to maturity. 7 times 2 is 14. What about PMT? Proper PMT. So PMT just now is 7.4%, right? So I need to use 7.4% divided by 2 times 1,000. Or you can use 7.4% times 1,000 first, then divided by 2. As long as you need divide by 2 lah. So berapa? So 7.4 divided by 2 is 3.7%. So 1,000 times 3.7%. 1,000 times 3.7% is 37. 37. Okay, so I have all the figures ready. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, then I can compute what? Compute IY. So put into calculator and compute IY first. But don't forget, this is for semi-annual. Later on, YTM must be yearly one. So do not follow this one. So you will get 9.9922 per half year. That means semi-annual. I do not want this. I want YTM. Okay, so once you get this, it's only per half year. I want to calculate YTM. So how? YTM, then I have to times 2 lah. 2.9. Okay, so 2.9922 times 2. So it's 5.9844% per annum. But do not forget you haven't adjusted for tax. What answers is this? So once you got this one just now is per half year. Now you have converted to per year. This is your YTM. Very good. But do not forget this is only your required return before tax. I want after tax. Macam mana? So I have to adjust it for tax. How much is the tax rate? 39%. Okay, so RD bracket 1 minus T. RD is, okay, so make sure if you want to convert into percentage, everything must be in percentage. If you want to convert into decimals, make sure you convert everything to decimals. So like for me, I scared, so I convert everything into decimal first. Okay, 1 minus 0.39. So you should get 0.0365. 365. Convert into percentage. 3.65%. Ta-da! I get the answers. So that's your RDAT. Okay, next question. Next Corporation has a target capital structure of 60% common stock. So 60% common stock, 5% preferred stock, and 35% debt. So these are the weightage. Okay, these are weightage. So that means this is the weightage for common stock, weightage of preferred stock, and weightage of debt. Its cost of equity is 11%, the cost of preferred stock is 5.5%, and the cost of debt is 7.2%, and the tax rate is 35%. So this is tax rate, and then the rest are the costs. That means the required return of the equity, the required return for the preferred stock, and the required return of the debts. So we can straight away calculate WACC already. Okay, so very simple. If you calculate WACC, you just put everything in. Right? So you use weightage of equity times the required return of equity, weightage of preferred stock times the required preferred stock, weightage of the debts times required return of the debts, adjust for tax. Okay, don't forget to adjust for tax for debts. So at the end, you get your WACC. They give you all the values, you put that in only. Okay, question B. The company's president has approached you about Malinex's capital structure. He wants to know why the company doesn't use more preferred stock financing since it costs less than that. What would you tell the president? Because preferred stock is equity, it's not tax deductible. But when you use debts, it is tax deductible, right? So therefore, interest is tax deductible and dividends are not. So we can see the after-tax cost of debt. Okay, because when you see after-tax cost of debt is only 4.68%. So after tax basis, the debt is actually cheaper. The president forgot to look into the after tax cost of debt. So the answer is this one. Debt is cheaper after you adjust for the tax. Okay, one last question. Okay, Zimca Mining has a target debt to equity ratio of 0.55. Debt to equity ratio. What do we mean? Okay, so debt to equity ratio. That means if I say debt to equity ratio equals to 0.55, what does it mean? That means my debt is 0.55 to 1 ratio. Okay, so sometimes if I write like that, that means what? That means 0.55 is the debts, 1 is the equity. So how much is the total capital funding? 1.55. Okay, because 0.55 is the debts, 1 is the equity. So total up is 1.55. So make sure you know, sometimes the terms they give you very tricky one. Okay, then after that, its cost of equity is 14%. And cost of debt is 8%. So all these are what? Required return, no? RE is RE. This is RD. Don't forget, you need to adjust for tax. If the tax rate is 35%, what is the company the WACC? Quite easy also, right? This one. So just put everything in only. So I will do that with you. So same thing, we calculate WACC. Okay. Required rate of return of equity times the weightage of equity plus the required rate of debts times the weightage of debts. Do not forget to adjust for tax. Okay, required return of equity is berapa? 14%. So is 0.14 times the weightage. How do we calculate the weightage? Equity is 1. 1 divided by the total of 1.55. Plus required rate of return of 0.55. Okay, adjust for sorry, not 0.5, sorry. How much? 8%, 8%. 0.08. Okay. Adjust for tax 1 minus 35%. Okay, and then the weightage 0.55 divided by 1.55. Okay, you put into calculator. If you find very hard to key it all at one shot, you can do it step by step. Plus make sure you don't do any mistake because it's quite easy to score. So it will be 10.88%. That's the answers. Students always make two mistakes. One is the numbers are too big or too long, so therefore they key in wrongly. Second mistake is they forgot to adjust for the text. You must make sure that you adjust for the text. This part over here. You need to make sure this part calculated correctly because this is the required rate of return for debts after tax, after the adjustment for tax. Do not forget to adjust for tax for debts. So the answer is 10.88%. Okay, that's the contents I want to cover for today's class. Because I have class, right? Stop sharing. Okay, so that's the contents of tutorial 9, WACC.